Clerk, could you call pro temp for Councilman Chris Harsh so he can be on the committee today? All right, and then we'll do the presentation, and then we'll do the order, and then we go through the legislation piece. So we do have Officer Mocap come to the table for his presentation today. Hey,
How about that?
how you doing?
Director DeRosa in the hot seat.
What's that?
In the hot seat.
In the hot seat, yes. We're ready.
How you doing, Director?
Real good, Councilman. Good morning to everybody.
Yep, so we'll start with the presentation. I see you have your team. Can you first introduce your staff just for council members as well as our viewers at home to know who's at the table today?
So Councilman Starr, my name is Jamie DeRosa. I'm the Director of Capital Projects here for the City of Cleveland. To my left is Commissioner Suzanne DeGennaro. She's the Commissioner of the Division of Real Estate. To my right is Carter Edmond. He's the Manager of Architecture and Site Development. And to his right is Rick Swotowski. He's the Manager of Engineering and Construction. And so these three represent the division chiefs or the divisional managers for each of the divisions in the Mayor's Office of Capital Projects.
All right, thank you all for coming to the table. I know members of the council will have some questions, but right after the presentation. So we'll allow you to go through the presentation first, and then followed by questions to the council, and then we move on from there.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman. So here's a quick agenda. We are going to go through both our strengths and our weaknesses and some of the goals that we have going forward. And since this is an operational discussion, you'll see that that's what we're focused on here today. For the viewing public, the Mayor's Office of Capital Projects, I'll just read the mission statement. Going forward, I won't read everything on the slide, but the mission statement is to provide for the planning, design, construction, and preservation of the City of Cleveland's facilities and infrastructure through collaborative and comprehensive planning, leadership and management, excellence in sustainable design and technical expertise, and quality construction based on integrity and professionalism. And as I mentioned, we have three divisions that are working towards these goals. And some of our objectives for the department are efficient delivery of projects, improving customer service and quality of our work, improving the quality of life of the residents through improvements that we make to the public realm, and also giving staff the resources and strategic vision to help accomplish these goals. So the next slide here shows the three divisions, as well as you can see, engineering construction is on the left-hand side, and they focus on the public right-of-way and improvements to the public right-of-way, specifically capital improvements, meaning major projects in the public right-of-way. There are 5 different sections under Mayor's Office of Capital Project Division of Engineering and Construction. One is road design. We have a new section now called bridge design. We have a survey section where our surveyors are housed. We have a construction section that oversees our construction projects. And then we have a permits and sidewalk section that issues permits, handles the tree damage sidewalk program, and coordinates on the 50/50 sidewalk program. Architecture and site development is really focused on general fund buildings and outdoor public spaces that are outside of the right-of-way, so basically public facilities and parks and recreation centers. And again, these are capital projects, not necessarily everyday repairs, but major projects that would lead to improvements of those facilities. And then the Division of Real Estate manages real estate transactions for the city, and that includes various departments of the city, with the exclusion of the City Land Bank. That's not under our purview, but we do work well with the Department of Community Development on that program. Real estate also manages tax exemptions and leasing and all kinds of all the needs of the various different departments. So this is a page that we'll sit on for just a minute. This is our SWOT plan, which is strengths. S is for strengths, W is for weaknesses, O is for opportunities, and T is for threats. And this kind of gives you a snapshot of where we see our department, not programmatically necessarily, but not specific programs, but just overall how we look at our strengths and weaknesses. So some of our strengths, we hope that council sees that we're responsive to your requests and phone calls. And if it's not me personally, it's most likely all of the folks that are sitting next to me that really are the on-the-spot reaction and responsiveness to council, as well as to residents. We've been working really well, especially since the beginning of last year on collaboration, both between departments and as well as with outside agencies. I think we've always had a good relationship with outside agencies, Sewer District, Metro Parks, the Department of Transportation, and now we have a lot more collaboration inside the building as well. I think that we all feel that we do a good job with processing ongoing assignments, measuring our efficiency through metrics, and also the organizational structure that we have set up seems to serve our projects well. Always room for improvements, but those are what we considered some of our strengths. Some of our weaknesses, we're really kind of top-heavy in the experience realm. We don't have a lot of entry-level employees that we think would add good energy and good context for our projects. But currently, we're not set up that way. It is something we're looking into. There's also not a lot of room for advancement, and we also are looking to streamline our intake process. We do get requests from council, the residents, different departments, and it's often hard to react as quickly and program and really triage to see what is an immediate need versus what is something we can plan out. Under the opportunities, you can see LOS's level of service improvements. Working with other departments in the city, we think that we can really streamline our process through quicker processing of invoices. That would be an internal process. Working on the permit streamlining process, which is currently being worked on by a consultant here at the City of Cleveland, and also the contract formation process. Those are all things that we think we can, opportunities for improvement. Park and Rec Master Plan will be back before this committee in November for a presentation, and I know we've outreached everyone to offer one-on-one meetings with our Park and Rec Master Plan team, but that's a great opportunity for improvements across our city. Project delivery methods will be before council shortly for legislation to enhance our ability to do different contracting techniques. So currently we do design, bid, build. We'll have the opportunities for design, build, and construction manager at risk, which are opportunities currently, but it's a little bit takes a little bit of time to get through those approvals. New federal grants, always an opportunity. We go after as many as we can. Have not landed a huge fish yet, but we keep trying. And use of technology, which has a lot of implications for our department. Geocoding, the work of our inspectors, new PCR rating system process that will be implemented by Public Works hopefully next year, and then electronic bidding, which will really help us if we get through those steps here at City Hall. And then finally, the threats, and these are things that are sort of we can manage but are really outside of our control, as opposed to the weaknesses which are within our control. Contractor availability and accountability. As we know, there's fewer numbers of contractors that submit for our big projects, especially in the roadway realm. And then there's always the accountability side of it as well. When you have fewer contractors bidding for your work, how to keep them accountable. Regional funding competition, so the big new federal grants, there's a heck of a lot of competition from our our friends that we're collaborating with. But that is a challenge for us to land those big grants as well. Bond sale delay this year. The bond proceeds came in, I think, September. So the earlier we sell them in the year, the more they match up with the construction season, the better it is for us. The less money we're paying on interest, and we can start our projects a little bit quicker. So we're going to be working to change that timing for 2024. Job market, we have 6 vacancies currently, and we have 67 positions total in our department, 6 vacancies currently, and it's just tough hiring engineers, hiring architects, hiring the folks that we need to do the detailed and skilled work in our department. And then inflation and volatility. I think we all understand that, the construction costs have gone up 30 to 50%, depending on which sector of our department you're speaking about, and that does create a challenge for getting all these great projects done. So some of the current initiatives, and again, these are sort of the bigger initiatives that we're working on. One is a city facilities downtown plan, master plan, and that looks at all of our downtown office spaces to determine both City Hall and the workspaces outside of City Hall, how to make sure that all employees are in good workspaces, how to make it more efficient for those that are coming in from the outside to go from one department or to another, and also to look to put folks in our own buildings and not in leased space. So that's a process that we've been going through over the last year and a half and should be wrapping up shortly this year. The Park and Rec Master Plan will be wrapping up at the end of next summer. Lots of engagement throughout the summertime, and it'll create a 15-year plan to determine how to equitably invest in our capital improvements in the Park and Rec realm. Construction reform, I touched on a minute ago. There'll be legislation shortly for different contracting methods. Again, that's mostly design, build, and construction manager at risk. Permit process improvements, I touched on. There's a study and investigation underway to make it more transparent for how residents go through the permitting process. Private development facilitation. We realized that it was really tough for developers to go through our process and not, get approval to build townhomes on, say, a street that was never constructed, and then assume that the city's going to come back later and build a road that had never been there before. So we have this process through, it's called PETBOT, which is Planning, Engineering, Traffic, and Bureau of Transportation. It's a group that meets to review development plans before they get too far down the road so that they can talk about any infrastructure needs, whether it's through the utilities, whether it's city planning, MOCAP, building and housing, so that those are addressed up front and really make it more of a developer-friendly environment. Lease and property inventory. We're expanding the lease and property inventory that has been created by the Division of Real Estate, and then working with our staff to map assets through a GIS database. We've been making good progress on that. Railroad bridge infrastructure. I think that folks were involved and understand the rail infrastructure challenges that we have in our city. We've been working with the law department to aggressively pursue actions, as well as working with our engineers to really evaluate which structures are in most need of improvement. Succession planning is something that's challenging when you have a top-heavy department, and so we're really working to ease the challenge when folks retire, to transfer knowledge from the experienced person to other staff, really document the flow of information and activity so that we don't lose too many steps when folks retire. And then the 5-year capital plan. We released a 3-year working capital plan earlier this year, and our goal is to work towards a 5-year plan. As you get further out in years 3, 4, and 5, everything is a lot more speculative, but at least to give an idea of, we have it internally, but just to give more of a public snapshot into what might be in years 4 and 5 is something that we're working on. So finally, or not finally, but our goals for the department, enhance and nurture better cross-departmental collaborations, which is something that we're succeeding on, but I think it's something to always work towards. Road and bridge construction program management. One of our goals is to be able to manage our programs, our construction projects ourselves, and not have ODOT manage all of our construction projects. There's quite a bit of training, administrative changes, and processing changes that need to happen, so we're going to start working towards that. To improve the tree damage sidewalk program, I think most of you would recognize that we're really struggling with the TDS program. But we are going to go out to bid for our requirements contracts this year, and we think that restructuring how the TDS contract is laid out would help us in that realm. To formalize a better intake process for specifically for facility and park requests, we're also hoping to engage in a public project public engagement consultant. We've had a little bit of trouble setting up the funding for that contract because it cannot be capital bonds. It needs to be other types of funding. So we're working towards the dollars that are needed for a public engagement process, which would be not only how do we interact with the public, what do they see on our website, how do we streamline the public interactions for our services, and then also for an asset management plan, really working with other departments and within ourselves to not just look at the capital improvement that we're building, but how do we maintain and how do we do preventative maintenance activities to really ensure a long life of those capital assets. So some of our successes here. You'll see on each of these slides, they included certain critical hires. It's really important for us to move quickly in the hiring process, but also to hire the right people and to really make sure that we're bringing in the right folks for this work that we do. I like to say that we're purpose-driven people here, and I believe that all of our employees are purpose-driven, meaning that they're really have an eye towards helping residents. And sometimes we get bogged down in our own process, but I can tell you it's the people in our department that really make a difference, whether it's just a phone call to someone who's struggling with the 50/50 sidewalk program or a business that's trying to get a street resurfaced next to their development. But if you look at architecture and site development, a key number to point out is they have almost $250 million of capital projects in various stages of completion, so that could be design all the way through construction. And they recently completed 13 rec and public facility projects. And whereas in engineering and construction in the bottom left corner, they have approximately $600 million of construction projects happening in various stages of completion. And they were successful in receiving over $17 million in grants. Some of those are regular ones that we go after every year, but there's no guarantees that you receive the funding until you put in a good application. And then if you look at the bottom right, this is just a snapshot, kind of a reminder that we really work off of bond proceeds and not so much the operating budget. Not that this is a budgetary hearing, but just to let you know that the bond proceeds are really our bread and butter to get our work done. And so in 2022, and we're reflecting 2022 there because 2023 just came in, a month or so ago, but just over $54 million in bond proceeds, and that would be all the different types of bonds, road and bridge, rec facilities, as well as some decertified funds from other projects that all were available to be programmed. And of that, road and bridge expended about $13 million. And as well, if you look at the column to the left, there's also bond money that comes in to increase that expend rate. But then there's also about $30 million of facilities and rec bonds for a total expended year to date for 2023 at about $43 million. So we're definitely moving bond money into projects and getting them started and into completion. And one of the things I should put as a weakness is we really don't toot our own horn when we finish a project in any of your wards. It's often you come to us and say, hey, you put the pickleball court down or whatever, and we need to get better at letting you know, hey, we just got this done. Send some pictures, send a fact sheet so that you could celebrate it with your residents. So this is a snapshot just to give you an idea for the construction side of the world. What type of, what is it exactly that we're doing? And so I'll just leave this one up here. This is the last one before questions, but I'll just leave it up here. And it might, if you have any questions about what we did year to date, and both of those are year to date, we can fill in the gaps. But again, I just have to say it's really, I'm lucky to have good staff here. I'm lucky to be able to try to learn from staff who have been doing this a lot longer than I have. And we hope that you feel that we're being responsive. We're not perfect. We know there are things we need to do quicker, better, differently, but at least I think we're doing a good job of trying to be responsive both to council and the residents. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director, for your wonderful presentation. I believe members of this committee and council have done a lot of good work with your office and your department. I can attest the fact that anytime I've reached out, anything going on, updates, where we are at with MoCap, your whole entire team is responsive and willing to come into the neighborhood, host these different meetings. I do have just a few questions I definitely would like to ask, and then I will open it up to council members. I know we got the park and recreation master plan going on. Could you speak more in detail where we are at with that plan from a standpoint of different phases? I just want to get the understanding of, what has been done so far with the plan. I know you mentioned that the goal is to be done by next summer with that master plan. Also how the relationship and working with council members goes into that master plan. And then also how are we engaging all the residents on that master plan so that they too can be able to voice their opinions, their thoughts about the facilities that they're used or why they're not using them. The programming side, the building side, all those different phases that you can speak to so us as council members can get a better understanding of where you are at with that master plan and how we can be a collaboration of a partnership. To the chair.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. We're actually really excited about the team that we have put together for it. And we think that we're working well as a team, and there are other outside entities that are helping us, CMSD, sustainability, city planning, Metro Parks, different groups that are contributing towards this plan. But where we're at right now is they finished the first phase, which was community engagement throughout the summertime. We had online surveys, we had pop-up events, we had a statistically valid survey that was mailed out to residents all throughout the city. And now the team is taking all that information, compiling it. We have all the information from the surveys, but I think they're still trying to determine that we have the right mix of demographics, age, and location that will really represent the whole city. And if there's any piece of that that's missing, then they'll go back out with targeted mailings to increase the number. Let's say they missed folks in Ward 5, then they'll go out with more targeted mailings to Ward 5 to try to get more responses in. But that was the first phase. The second phase we're in is the strategic visioning phase, which is just kicked off last month, and really is involving taking what we've heard from the residents, but then also listening to what the administrative goals are. We're offering to council members, we'll send you another copy of the letter, but we're looking to meet with council members that we haven't met with before. Some council members have met with us if they're a chair or vice chair of a committee, and most council members we haven't, so we're looking to have those conversations. And then in the early of 2024, we're going to go back out with more public engagement, which would be sort of, here's what we came up with so far, what do folks think about it, and really try to have a representative response. So we know that we had a slow start with the summer engagement in relation to interacting with council members, so we're trying to change that the next time around. We also talked to Councilman Bishop about coming to this committee in November so that we could give an update to all council members as well as to, anyone else that might want to attend from council. So we don't have a date for that, but he's suggested in November would work for folks, so that'll be coming up shortly. And then, Carter, is there anything that I might have left out?
I think that
You think so?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you, Director. One point I definitely would like to bring up is, I know you spoke on community engagement and then 2024 to do some public engagement. I want to look at my colleagues to see, have you scheduled a meeting with MOCAP in the rec centers in your neighborhood? The reason why I'm asking that question with all council members is because we get told about the rec centers every day. We get a lot of calls about what is going on at the rec center, what is our different needs to support, prime example, like Big City Boo is taking place on Tuesday. I know every rec center I have in my ward has asked me to donate as much as I can for that recreation center for this event that, it's not even a collaboration on that event. So since we get a lot of the calls on those different initiatives about what's going on in the recreation center, I would like for staff to work to make sure that MOCAP is scheduling some type of community engagement regarding the parks and recreation centers in collaboration with a council member to host that community meeting, because I think that can help you. Also, I know you mentioned surveys. Do you got a number of total number of surveys that was completed? I asked that question because a lot of residents in Cleveland are not good with surveys. Some of them are not technology savvy as others. So if we can get a number of how many surveys was completed, that can also help us understand what happened through that process. And also on those surveys, did you have some type of age range category so we can know who is actually participating in it, so we will not, forget any certain age group or any different population that we need to make sure everyone who used the recreation center have an opportunity to voice their opinion. So that community meeting will be very important that I think we need to do. Also, I would like to just ask regarding the engineering and construction division, the PET pot, to assist developers with permitting process. So can we speak a little bit more in depth about that program, just so we can get an understanding? If somebody don't know what that department or what that creation group is, can we talk about what that process looks like?
Councilman, yes. Can I just say that anybody that wants a community meeting or a one-on-one about the Park and Rec Master Plan, let me know. We would be happy to come out. It doesn't have to be with our consultants. It's just, we know it. We've been going out to different groups as we can. So please, anybody that's interested, definitely let us know, and we can get you information about the surveys and ages and whatnot as well.
Thank you.
So I'm going to hand it over to Rick Sotowski to talk about the PetBog Committee.
To the chair, the PetBug is about maybe a year old at this point in time, and it was an answer to a problem that we've been having for years. Whereas developers would come and bring their plans to the city, the plans for the building would get approved, but the right-of-way, the impacts on the right-of-way, the impacts it may have on the safety units and other different departments went really unanswered. And once the building went up and the developer got all his loans for his building, we're coming back to him at a later time saying you need a couple $100,000 for roadways now and for other improvements that you're having, or that fire says I can't get to that building and we need to do something about that. Well, the answer we found was to get this organization called PetBot, which is Planning, Engineering, Traffic Engineering in the Bureau of Traffic. And now we probably have most every division of the city that, like water pollution control, CWD, CPP, fire, safety, EMS, and others now that come and meet every Tuesday they meet, and they're the first step before you now get to the Planning Commission. So developers go through this process. It's basically an overview of what's being done. Comments can then be made that you need to do this, that, or something else. That gets incorporated into their building plan. They can take out loans to do what they need to do, so when they close, they not only have the building put together, but they also get the roadways, right-of-ways, sidewalks, any type of fire safety or EMS needs that are then met. So it's a really something that was done for developers, and we got a lot of positive feedback from them, because now they know exactly what they have to do, and we're not having issues like a development goes up and the street was built for 5 cars in the old alleyway. Now you got 200. So we have to make adjustments to those things. PetBot does that.
Thank you so much. And I have one last question, and I will open it up to members of the committee. My last question is, I know we do have the Community Engagement Strategy, RFP. Can we speak a little bit more about that RFP, where we are at in the process, how it's going, how is it helping our constituents in the city of Cleveland, and how it's helping deliver the services that we need?
So, Mr. Chairman, we went through an RFP process. We selected a consultant for the community engagement, but we have not kicked off that contract yet because Bond Council determined that you can only use bond funds for community engagement if it's paired with a specific project. And since this was a departmental-wide, citywide initiative, Bond Council said that there was no, capital asset, if you will, to attach to that community engagement. So we've been working with our finance department to identify other funds for that contract. And we also swapped some planning dollars with city planning for some capital dollars that they were seeking to make some traffic calming and quick build type of projects for traffic calming. So we're in the midst of putting all the funding together, and then we'll be coming to council with an ordinance to give us authority to enter into that contract. So we think it's going to be now probably, even if we get through city council this year, which I'm not sure, we have to get the money set aside first, it wouldn't be until next year that we would start the process. In the meantime, I think we've learned a lot from both our Park and Rec master plan, some good things and some not so good things that we did during the first round of public engagement. We've also been working through the Trust for Public Land on this pilot project for public engagement that we used for Neff Park and Calgary Park, which are 2 new park constructions that are kicking off, will be kicking off shortly. And so we had that public engagement money through a grant built in each of those design contracts. And we also got some lessons learned from that. So I think we're poised well for starting this public engagement contract, but we don't have all the money set aside yet.
All right. Well, that's the only questions I have. I'm going to open it up to committee. I do have Councilman Brian Casey up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to either the director or the manager, how many square feet is in a sidewalk panel? Like, I'm
going to defer to Rick on that.
I assume that. Do you know how many
To the chair,
square?
to the council member, it depends.
On average.
Sidewalks are 4 feet, some are 5 feet wide, 6 feet long. Just to go 5 by 6, 30 square feet.
All right. I'm only asking that because it's come to my attention over probably the past 2 years or so, the 50/50 sidewalk program has become overly expensive, and more so that it's probably less expensive for a homeowner to repair those sidewalks themselves without going through the 50/50 program. And we all know, and we've had this discussion before, that individuals' deeds to their property either start or begin, depending on which way you're going, at their tree lawn, right? So your property does not include the sidewalks, nor does it include the tree lawns, right? We know that those are property of the city of Cleveland. So, Mr. Chairman, to the director, can you explain to me how or why we hold individuals responsible for broken city property in front of their homes?
Yes. So through the chairman and the councilman, there's a codified ordinance that specifies what is the city's responsibility and what is the property owner's responsibility. And that ordinance states that it's from the curb to wherever their deed may specify as it being their private property. I will say that a lot of, depending on when the road was built and when the houses were built, some properties do go to the center line of the street. Others have other locations where the property might end, but by ordinance, it is to the curb. We acknowledge that the costs were really high for the 50/50 program. We did let a contract, we combined the tree damage sidewalk with the 50/50 program and let out 2 contracts through a requirements contract last year for a 2-year term. The cost came in so high it was prohibitive. So the Division of Streets was good enough to figure out how they could increase their capacity to pour the sidewalks, which is really the only way that it would have been affordable during this 2-year contract period. We're hoping to continue that. We're also hoping that removing the 50/50 out of the TDS contract will decrease the cost of the TDS project contract for the concrete, because those prices are really high too. We're kind of stuck with them, but we're hoping that next time around when we go out to bid, that changing that bidding process is going to reduce the cost for the residents, because we understand that if it's cost prohibitive, folks won't maintain their sidewalks. I did hear from other cities that there are smaller cities that do take care of sidewalks, but for bigger cities, it is it is quite the challenge for a city to cover all the curbs and sidewalks in the entire city.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, can we hold individuals responsible? Can we fine them, or can we just recommend that they fix it?
So our, through the chairman and the councilman, our administrative policy is not to fine residents, but we do encourage. For businesses, we can give a fine. There is a sidewalk appeals committee that they can come to if they do not agree with the fine or the scope of work that we're imposing on them.
So, Mr. Chairman, to the director, right now, currently, we just encourage individuals to fix their sidewalks. We don't fine them for having broken sidewalks or raised sidewalks or anything like that, correct?
Through the chairman and the councilman, that's correct.
Okay, and then the tree damage sidewalk, when, I don't 5 years ago or 6 years ago, 7 years ago probably, when a street was redone, the city was going to come back the following year to redo any of the tree damage sidewalks, and I know that we fell very, very, very far behind in that, with that initiative. Can you give us an update on where we are with that? And are we even still doing it because we're so far behind that it's kind of just gotten lost in the dust?
Through the chairman and councilman, we're definitely still doing it. Has not got lost in the dust, but we are woefully behind. They are just starting 2021 streets, and that's just starting them in the last couple weeks. So, really it's next year that they'll be hitting those hard. I'll defer to Rick for a better, more complete update, but we're definitely looking to catch up, hopefully by having a lower cost for the concrete in the next requirements contract.
To the chair, to the council member, director is correct. We are still moving forward with our TDS program. We're in the 2021 years. What had happened this past year, the last requirements contract, we basically went from $2,000 based for a resident to about $6,000. So our ability to use the money we had was cut by 2/3. So with the same amount of money, we were able to only do a third of what we did prior to that. So it went from like 2,000 to 6,000. So as director mentioned, separating the tree damage sidewalk from 50/50, we're hoping we get better prices for both, with the logic being that TDS, tree damage sidewalk, is a straight run of doing work. You've got a whole street that you're doing work, one mobilization cost, you're out there getting it done. 50/50 is just here, there, and you always are mobilizing. So instead of having one contract that's sitting at about $10 million, we're going to pull 50/50 out. We traditionally did about $600,000 of work, opens up opportunities for smaller contractors, and then TDS keep that all as one contractor where they can have one mobilization, move along, and don't have to hop back and forth between a 50/50 and the tree damaged sidewalks. So we're hoping that helps alleviate some of the problem of having those high costs.
All right, so we're currently about 3 years behind then in TDS. And then my last question is then, with the prices being so outlandish now, and it's nobody's fault, it's just the price of concrete nowadays, why won't the city allow council members to use discretionary funds to cover the cost of a 50-50 sidewalk? Now, I know the answer, but I've tried changing the legislation, and we've worked on this before. But can you give us an explanation as to why we can't use discretionary funds to help relieve the residents who don't own the property but are encouraged to upkeep city property, that we can't use discretionary funds? And I don't say it's so much for that resident, right? Just happens to be in front of their house, right? It's a city property, right? And how come we can't help alleviate the cost of whatever, either it's to the city or to the resident, with using our discretionary funds to get the sidewalks fixed?
So through the chairman and the councilman, it does relate to the codified ordinances, and the codified ordinances require that the resident pays 50% and the administration, the city, pays 50%. So currently, there's no ability for some other third party to pay the residents 50%. There are occasions when the councilman's money can't come in if the damage to the sidewalk is because of a tree. Then law department has determined that since we have a citywide tree damage sidewalk program, that the councilman could pay to fix a tree damaged sidewalk on someone's property. But if it happens to be just a cracked sidewalk, and it happens to be somebody that has some kind of mobility issue, that's not something that councilman can spend their money on unless they do a block-to-block replacement of the entire block.
Right, which we know, a council member couldn't afford to do a block-to-block, right? That's overly expensive to do a whole street. We need to work on that. I know that I've tried working with law, and they bucked that idea because of some unknown reason. But if we can help with tree damage sidewalks, even though we have a tree damage sidewalk program that should pay for that itself, council should be able to use discretionary funds to help with any type of sidewalk repair that we need to get done. And I know that law looks at it like we're just giving money to a homeowner, right, for that. And that's really not what we're doing. It's more of a safety issue. It's more of a aesthetics, whatever you want to call it. So I'd love to work with you in the future on how to take this codified ordinance that everybody's looked at and keeps saying, no, we can't change, using public dollars for individuals. But I don't look at it like that. I look at it as that's city property, and we should be able to help city property, even though it not only benefits that homeowner, but it also benefits everybody else using that sidewalk as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilmember Casey. That is great. I'm going to call on Councilman Harrison next because he has a point that he wanted to make up regarding this issue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be brief. Just on Councilman Casey's topic, I don't understand. So in one breath, we can do a sidewalk if it's tree related, and it's city-owned property, right? It's not the property of the resident. We've had that discussion. The sidewalk does not belong to the resident. The sidewalk and the tree line belongs to the city of Cleveland, but we require the homeowner or the resident, whoever, to maintain that sidewalk or curb, correct?
Through the chairman, the councilman, yes, from the curb inward towards the house is the resident's responsibility.
Got it. And so to Councilman Casey's point, if it is city property, regardless of where it is, right? Because not only does that resident of that house walk up and down their street, so does their neighbors, so does the folks from the other street, so does the walkers club who get together and they walk miles around their neighborhood, right? So does the neighbor down the street who pushes her child in the stroller going to school, who does not live at that house in front of that damaged sidewalk. So I guess I don't understand, and this is a discussion I'd like to be a part of that, Councilman Casey and Mr. Chairman. if what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? So if it's okay for us to fix the sidewalk if it's a tree damage, why is it okay for us to fix the sidewalk if a tree has not damaged that particular sidewalk? It could be just an issue that has caused the sidewalk to raise, right? And that could be even more of a liability as as people continue to walk up and down that sidewalk. But at the end of the day, it's city property. These are city dollars going to city property. I don't understand what the codified ordinance and what the issue has been with the previous law department about why that couldn't be done.
Through the chairman of the councilman, I'm happy to have new discussions with the law department to see how we can come to some at least explain this better to council. My understanding is that because we don't have a citywide sidewalk program, that we can't just select a particular property that has damage to a sidewalk to fix it, whereas the tree damage sidewalk program is a citywide program. Eventually, the whole city will get their residential streets resurfaced and those sidewalks fixed. So any more than that, I have to defer to more conversations with law department, but I'm happy to have those conversations.
I'm just looking at our law representative here, so make sure we write a note for that, please, that we, maybe you can ask a question. But in closing, Mr. Chair, on my point that, even 50-50, Councilman Casey, and Chairman, we can change that allows for other sources to fund the second half of that piece, right? I mean, law department is advisory. Law department isn't the be-all, end-all, right? If we want to pass something, we can pass it. If the mayor vetoes it, we can override his veto. That's just the process, right? So if we want to do it, council members, then let's do it and make it happen. And regardless of what whoever has something to say, we are supporting the people who live in our neighborhoods, on our streets. They're not in the suburbs anywhere. They're in the city of Cleveland. And they are dealing with the issues that affected them the most. And quite honestly, sidewalks is one of the issues that they are really concerned about, right? Because it's a safety issue. It just doesn't make the street look good. And it just, even when we do the streets, I get so many calls after we do streets, how incomplete the street looks because, we just took the asphalt up, put new asphalt down, but the curbs are busted, gaps everywhere. The sidewalks are lifted. We could do a better job at what has been and is being done now as relates to improving our infrastructure across the city of Cleveland. Thank you. And we do have a citywide program. 50-50, that's citywide.
And that was going to be my point. If
Right.
tree damage sidewalk is citywide, so is 50-50, right? So the argument that we can do it for tree damage sidewalks because it's a citywide program kind of doesn't weigh all that much weight because the 50-50 program is citywide as well. So, and this is probably more legal and law than it is us sitting here at the table, but we'd like to work on changing that aspect.
Thank you, Councilman Casey, as well as Councilman Anthony Harrison. They did bring up some very pivotal points that we do get addressed and asked regarding these sidewalks. After you do repave a street, a resident will call and talk about the curb. They will talk about what didn't happen that you could have done or we should have done, because doing things, the good quality of doing things is more important than just doing amount of streets that we can say we want to do. Want to make sure we do that. I do want to put a point out to our staff. If we could look up the ordinance that was passed regarding these programs from TDS as well as the 50-50 sidewalk, so we can really take a deep dive. I too would like to join in with my colleagues so we can be able to have a discussion offline, and then also we can also bring the law into a committee table to talk about that, and then also we can make an informed decision for us as council members to pass the ordinance or legislation or amend anything that we may need to do so we can get this addressed, because we can't go another season dealing with the same streets or sidewalks that haven't been done. But then also I would put one more thing, request from the staff is, could we work with the administration to get a list of all the streets that have been repaved since 2018, and then also get a list from what streets have received from TDS support, so we can see what streets has been repaved since 2018, those last 5 years, but then also what we did with TDS, what have they done from 2018, so we can get an understanding to match what we've seen, because sometimes you may see a street got repaved, and then it said TDS was coming, and we heard TDS has far behind, and they started in the process of starting in 2021, but there may be very well some streets that didn't get completed from 2018, 2019, just so we can make sure we do that follow-up. And then one last thing on TDS, I definitely would like to ask from the director. I know that this upcoming budget that just passed, we increased the TDS budget so we can be able to get, I believe, another contractor to come in. At first, it was just one contractor trying to do all the TDS. Now we said we added more funding to it to be able to have two contractors, one for the east and one for the west. Can you speak on how has that improved this year alone on catching up? Because if we added funding for something, we just want to know where that is at and how we are in the process of getting caught up. Can we ask that, Director?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So yeah, that is exactly how we let the contracts last year, to have two contracts, one east, one west. And it wasn't, exactly east and west, but we split up where the streets were that they were going to need to resurface. And unfortunately, while we did increase the funding, the costs increased dramatically as well. And I would say that the combination of TDS 50/50 contracts brought in a very high rate that, as I mentioned, is why we took the 50/50 out of the program. Thankfully, streets were able to do that work. So I would say that approach did not work last time around. In addition to what Rick Switowski mentioned about putting out a contract just for the TDS, we think we're going to get better prices as well, because at least for the streets through 2023, we have an exact list of streets to give to them, so folks know exactly what they need to do. Now, going forward, it's a 2-year contract, so they won't know where 2024 and 2025 are. But to have a list of streets is going to give us better prices, because people know exactly what they're bidding on. They're not going to have to inflate the price just because they're guessing how much work and where that work would be. So we're hoping that the change will help, but no, the two contracts was a good thing to try, but it really didn't help. They had the capacity, but we really didn't have the money to go at it as urgently as we wanted to.
Thank you. And I do have Councilwoman Rebecca Moore, who is up next.
Yeah. I think actually Councilman Harrison has a quick point. Or
When would that bid go out?
Excuse me?
Through the chair to the director, when would that bid go out that you just mentioned?
Oh, the bid.
I'm
Through the
sorry.
chairman, the councilman. So this is the ordinance that was just passed out of Finance Committee on Monday.
That's that ordinance.
Yeah, it's that ordinance. So we're starting to put together the scopes. And Rick, do you think it'll be the end of this year or the beginning of next?
To the chair, to the council member, we'd like to have that out for bids probably late this year, early next year.
Okay.
Because there's always a chance that you have a bid protest, and it's happened before, so you have to rebid. This current contract expires in July, and that date we have to stop the old one. We can't carry over any work. So we really want that other one in place at the same time, so as soon as that 21, 22, 23 contract ends, 23, 25 contract comes in.
Okay. Through the chair, so it ends in July 2024?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
no problem. Hold on. This might be the wrong one. I'm going to go for this one. Good morning. I think I probably bug the people on this panel the most out of almost any department, as I'm sure many of us do. Just in the spirit of the operational review, I'm wondering if you have any open positions within MOCAP and what the plan is to fill the open positions through the chair.
Through the chairman and the councilwoman, great question. So we have six open positions. We also have another engineer that's retiring January 1st. Mr. Edmund here is leaving us shortly as well. So we
What?
have, yeah,
Oh my
You
goodness.
retiring? Wait, hold on.
not retiring, just leaving us.
Where are you?
Well, I want to say
headed?
he's not seasoned like that. He told me.
It's better to bring it up now so you can give him all his accolades.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and members, that's true. November 17th will be my last day. And I don't mind saying it was a very difficult decision. And I'm really going to miss everyone that we work with here, including yourselves and all the great work we do. So, yeah, November 17th.
Wow. Wow, I'm gonna miss the bow ties. Thank you for getting the Stella Walsh Gym open before you left. One of just many projects that you've had an incredible hand in. So I'll be interested to hear more about what's next and celebrate you when the time is very close. So congratulations. So that actually is more important staffing because
Yes.
you've got somebody who is on the ball
Stellar.
here. So what are we doing? Where are we going?
Yeah, so Councilwoman, I agree 100%. So basically, we're going to have 3 engineers, if you include the one that's retiring in January, that engineering position that need filled, and then we'll have 1 architect and 1 landscape architect position that'll need to be filled, and then we have a couple other positions vacant. We just made an offer to an inspector, so that's good. We need a construction manager. We need a surveyor. So we have 6 positions currently, plus the 2 that'll be going soon. So we have been fortunate that we placed 3 key section chiefs in engineering and construction. 2 of those came from outside firms, and so one was a promotion internally, and so we're starting to get a lot more applications due to the caliber of folks that we landed from the outside, as well as the stability that we're showing with our senior staff inside. We're also we are pursuing alternative organizations, if you will, besides just LinkedIn and whatnot, professional organizations that are both focused on, say, engineering, but maybe the Hispanic Engineers Association and the local chapters of those groups. That also seems to help a lot, and we do have some active folks in our department that help with those organizational leads. But it's tough. Everyone's hiring, especially engineers. Everybody's hiring, and our salaries, while they're not horrible, they really can't compare to the private sector. So it's, we have to try to make a pitch on the culture here at the City Hall, the exciting time that it is to be here, and also the fact that you get to really dig into these projects and not just be a part of the team that drafts the design, but you're actually instrumental in deciding what vision we want to put into some of these transformational projects.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's an exciting time to work at the city, but I know it can sometimes be a hard sell. It sounds like we have 6 open positions and then 2 big ones that are coming up. Mm-hmm. Of those, essentially like 8 in total, are any of those posted right now? How many of them are open?
Through the chairman of the council, yes. So we have 2 engineering positions currently posted. They're called consulting engineers. We have the construction manager position posted, or it may have just come down, but we're going to put it back up. So the construction manager is posted. The inspector, we just made an offer to, so that's down. The surveyor, they're in the middle of interviews, so that's not currently up. And then landscape architecture, that should be up soon, as well as the 2 other ones. So we definitely have a few postings up, and any help folks can give us to get the word out, we would appreciate it.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Well, I don't envy you trying to fill the role for an architect. I want to quickly pivot to the sidewalk program because I also have spent a lot of the summer bugging the team about various sidewalk panels, and some of it just seemed to come down to communication. So for the TDS streets, people don't know about TDS, and so to them, they got their road repaved 3-4 years ago, and then all of a sudden they wake up one morning and a bunch of the sidewalk panels have been dug out, and they don't quite know what's going on. And then my understanding from the course of this summer was that what you alluded to in terms of the TDS program struggling was that there was a really long gap between when the panels were pulled out and when they were re-poured, in addition to the arborist issues that we had in the program this summer. So I'm wondering what MoCap's expectations are around the communication, and if there are any changes that are incorporated in what the changes to the program that you're anticipating through the chair.
Through the chair, the councilwoman, excellent points, and I really do think communication is key. Even just the email that you sent recently about when is, how the castings are raised on the ARPA streets.
Yeah.
If folks knew that we're not done,
Exactly.
and we're coming back, then you'd get less complaints. We would get more, less calls
literally,
as well.
I change my voicemail message when it's this phase of the road repaving and it's gone on for a couple of weeks. I change my voicemail message and I say, if you are calling about a road being repaved or about these roads and it's about, it doesn't seem like it's done and there are lips, that's because they're not done yet, and people just don't know. And so it is such, and truly, like every week I get voicemails that are like, thanks for that informative voicemail message on your answering machine. So really those, like the raised castings, the long, length on the sidewalk pours, people reach out to us about those all the time.
Through the chairman, the councilwoman, we are actively discussing how to improve that communication. I can tell you one thing that we learned from last year was about how many sidewalks were just open and graveled. And so, if all goes well, as we've planned it, we won't see any of graveled sidewalks. There should be cold patch, which would go in and then be taken back out when the weather turns and able to pour the concrete. So we do learn. I think right now is a learning phase on that communication, and I don't know what the best solution is for residents, but we are actively discussing it right now. And my hope is that when we start work next year, we're going to have that plan in place, and we're going to have better communication the whole way through. So thank you for that comment, though.
Yeah, I'm grateful to hear that, because I think that will just ease. It's all about, my underlying theory of Cleveland is we feel forgotten. And so when, these programs and these projects happen that leave people with this sense of, oh, I've been forgotten again,
Yep.
It really, it gets people and it gets in their craw a little bit. And the only thing I'll add to that is another thing that my office has been struggling with is sorting out when it is a Dominion gas line repair that is resulting in a sidewalk repair versus the city. And it seems to me that Dominion did a lot of work this summer without a ton of communication either. So I'm wondering, and I'll just give a shout out to Aaron O'Neill, who, even as we were sitting here, I'm being reminded that we had an outstanding question to Dominion and hadn't gotten sorted out, and Aaron's just been fantastic with helping us sort that out. If there's any ways that we can improve the communication with Dominion, because they seem to do a high volume of repairs, at least this summer, as they do these gas line replacements, but it's also really confusing to residents about what's happening and why.
And through the chairman and the councilwoman, it's also on us too to better utilize our new website that's up, right? So I'm hoping that come next year we're going to be able, not that everyone can, feel at ease to go to our website, but at least have consistently current information on things like the Dominion program, so that people can see if their street is now scheduled or not, or because when we meet with council members, we have a snapshot, but Dominion does update that snapshot frequently, but we need to have a better process to get that out.
Yeah, imagine a map where you could say, there's construction happening on my street, and then it says who's doing the construction. Okay, well, I look forward to hearing more of as we head towards the budget, that those positions, we get strong applicants for them. For anyone in the listening audience, this is your time.
Yes.
Get into MoCap, because you guys are doing some of the most exciting work in the city, especially as we head towards the Parks and Rec Master Plan. So thank you for your time, and I'm looking forward to more sidewalks getting done.
All right, seeing that we have no other. Yep. Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious for my understanding, through the chair to the director, is the sidewalk program in the budget here? I'm looking at the budget breakdown. Is it in here, or does it fall under capital, under bond issuance?
Through the chairman and the councilman, so the sidewalks, like most of our work, falls under the bond proceeds.
Okay.
Yeah. So when
It's not the contractual services under here.
not for sidewalks, don't.
Okay. And then through the chair, what is the average rough? I'm sorry, not average. What is the rough budget for sidewalk program? I apologize if I missed it earlier.
Rick, do you recall what our last, I think it was, or actually I have it here.
Ballpark is fine.
Do you have a ballpark, Rick?
Since you're looking, I'd rather have it be accurate.
Yeah. So through the chairman to the councilman, 2023 was just shy of $2 million.
Okay.
And I will say that, we knew that 1.9 million wasn't sufficient to get caught up.
Right.
But it's also a balancing act between all the other things that need to be funded in that bucket.
Right.
know.
And through the chair, is that just for the tree damage or the 50/50 or all of it combined?
That was just for tree damage sidewalk.
Okay.
Yep. And 50/50 would have been, would
I think
50/50 be
I think we
under-
still had additional funds left, so I don't think we
From last
asked.
year?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
It's typically a couple $100,000 program.
Okay.
Probably 500,000 if it's going well.
And through the chair, it requires residents to draw down on it. So if you don't have enough residents drawing down on it, then those funds remain.
Correct.
Got it. Okay. Then through the chair, I'm curious. I've looked at all these budgets that we've reviewed, and roughly they should all be about 75%, and overall the department's at 65, with the big lag being on other contractual. I believe, did I lose my page? Yeah, contractual services only being at 38% expenditure. So through the chair to the director, I see some of that as taxes, and I assume that's all due at the end of the year. But could you just provide for my layman brain why we're at 38% on contractual services?
Through the chairman and the councilman, I'm not exactly sure on that percent. I did get this from finance department, but part of that contractual is the county's bridge inspection. So the county inspects all of our bridges, and we have to, when they invoice us, we reimburse them for that cost. So if I'm not mistaken, it's because we haven't gotten the invoice to pay yet, but I'll have to double check and confirm that.
So some
for
of
you.
these are just receipts due at the end of the year that haven't been fulfilled yet, and when they do,
That's my understanding, Councilman, but I'll have to confirm that for you.
okay. Okay. The last question, since I ask everybody this, because we're playing with this interesting idea, if the city has to reduce our general fund allocations by 2% annually, and we spread that across every department, through the chair, could the department sustain a 2% cut without cutting personnel?
Through the chairman and the councilman, I would defer to finance on that opinion, on that comment. We, as you know, most of our funds come from bond proceeds, so we don't have much left in the operating budget besides, salaries. But I would have to defer to finance on how they would manage that.
Right. And so through the chair, a question about those bonds, because they've been a hot topic this year. Through the chair to the director, could you describe how you work with other departments when they want to spend money on capital repair projects, but say Parks and Rec wants to do a playground, and they come to you for that? Could you explain how that interaction works, just sort of like a step-by-step?
Sure. So through the chairman and the councilman. So first of all, it's an ongoing process throughout the year. So we do receive requests from various departments throughout the year, which generally speaking, they're related to facilities or rec centers or parks. So Carter and his staff would go out to evaluate what the condition is. Unless it's something pretty minor in scale, it needs to be budgeted for in the future years. And so what we do is we do a good cost estimate, either in-house, or if it's something more complicated, we'll use one of our on-call architecture teams to do a cost estimate for the repair. And then we work towards around October, when we internally have a picture of how we think different projects need to be budgeted into the next year's budget. And that's when we have more detailed conversations with, starting in November, October, with the directors to say, hey, your department over the last year, they've given us requests of all these different projects. We think that this is the most critical one to budget for, but do you agree with that, or do you want to shuffle the deck and put something else in advance of that one?
Through the chair, who does that conversation happen between, you and who?
Well, it'd be, so for instance, the two biggest requesters, if you will, would be Public Works, which handles both facilities and Park and Rec, and as well as public safety. So ultimately, it's up to that department to recommend to us what to put in the budget that then gets a draft of it, then gets reviewed by the chief operating officer, the finance director, director of sustainability, myself, director of public works, and then and the person in finance that's over the capital budget. And then those decisions are made about, can $20 million be put into road and bridge, or can $10 million go into rec, or does it need to be higher or less based upon priorities?
And through the chair, if there's more demand for bonded projects than capacity for the city to bond out, who makes the decision on which projects get bonded for?
Well, it would be through that process, and I apologize if it was unclear, but there's both a director to director, there's a staff review, there's a director to director conversation, and then there's a operating budget committee that reviews, or bond allocation committee that reviews what we recommend as a department for the city to allocate the bonds towards.
The bond issuance committee. That was correct? Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what we actually call it, but yes,
Okay.
there's a committee, and it's outlined in the capital improvement plan.
Okay, and so through the chair to the director, if there was a new department that wanted to spend general fund, they wanted to spend bond money, they would just get in line with everybody else and be part of the conversation on what takes precedent and what the comparison to the bonding capacity of the city. They would just be a new seat at the table trying to figure out who gets what this year.
So the committee is specified as far as who is on that committee, but we as a department meet with directors all the time with requests that they might have, whether it's for their own offices or whether it's for a facility that they operate out of.
Okay. And I apologize to the chair, to the director. I understand these are kind of vague questions, but it's kind of a vague scenario. Through the chair, the director, if a department were to come to you and say, here's $2 million, we want you to go build a playground for whatever area. Does that, through the chair, does that normally happen? Do departments just give you unencumbered cash to build projects, or do you always go through your standard process of bonds and?
Through the chairman and the councilman, typically we go after grant funding together. So if, but not always. Sometimes Public Works might come to us with a grant that they've received, or sustainability might come to us with a grant that they've received for a particular type of project, and then we would work with them on the scope.
Okay, then through the chair, what determines your capacity to work on that project if the money is just given to you? If they say, here's the money, go do it. Like, do you have to still figure it out in your work plan and your staff capacity, or is it just once you have the money, you can just contract it out?
Through the chairman and the councilman, these are great questions, but we have a staff of folks that are working on many different projects. So of course their time needs to come into the equation of how quickly we can go from point A to actually delivering a product. Some work can be designed in-house. Some work is designed by on-call architects or landscape architects. It really just depends on the scope and the scale of the project.
Okay. And the last question, is it the case at all with any department, the departments just give you, your department, money to do projects? They just say, here's the money to do it? Or does that happen at all?
Well, I would liken it to city council. You all give us money for projects, and we figure
Through
out
ordinances.
or through your capital fund, right? So if
Okay.
you wanted, if you want lighting in one of your parks, that and you're putting up the capital funds, then
Right.
we figure out how to design it, how to budget for it,
Right.
review the scope and the budget with you, and then work towards bidding it out and
Right.
the construction.
Okay, so the example would be the Archmere lighting project that I think we've been 12, 14 months now, I think, just getting everything ready and lining up all the ducks. But I was able to provide the funding for that, so you were able to bid it out and put it in line with all the other projects you were working on, so I didn't get to cut ahead or anything. But it got put into the workload, and the funds are provided, so you're able to contract that out. It took all in all, I think it's getting started in the next couple of weeks or months, so about a year and a half to get the whole thing rolling.
Yeah, that's right. We currently have accepted the bid. We're just awaiting certification of the
Sure.
contract. So, yeah, that's how that would work. And if it's pretty rare the department comes to us with a project and with money. And if they do, it's usually something on that scale. It might be an office renovation or something that's $100,000 or a couple $100,000. We don't really have a case where a department comes to us with $2 million for a major project.
Right. If a department were to have $12 million and say, we want you to do all this projects throughout the city, that would be unusual workflow within the department.
That would be unprecedented.
Right.
We haven't-
Because all of city council has, I think, $2 million per year access, and that doesn't even all come to your department. So I'm just trying to think things through. I appreciate you. Thanks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. So that's our presentation. Do you want to take a break, or we can roll it to?
Just a quick question, Mr. Chair, if I can.
Yes.
Who, the committee that looks at the bond recommendation, because those recommendations ultimately is what council passes, correct? When you bring those 4 different bond ordinances to the committee, Mr. Chair, to the director.
Through the chairman, that's right. And this year there'll be one you haven't seen in a while, which is cemetery bonds. There's a priority project in one of the cemeteries, so you'll have a new.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. There you go.
Oh, wait, that just made the news. We need to do that.
What's that? Did it?
Disrepair the cemetery. Sorry.
Yeah, I have no idea. In that committee, that's just like an informal group that meets and get together through the departments, or is that something that's created by ordinance or anything?
Through the chairman and councilman, I am not sure how it is set up in the capital improvement the program book. It does outline who those folks are, but how it's set up, I don't believe it's by charter or by codified ordinances. I think it's just custom and practice over the years.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was just interested in how that's put together, but that is the ordinances that we typically get for council to approve. So Councilman Harsh, when he asked the question, who gets to make that decision, the administration recommends, and then it comes to council for final approval. So at that point, council has the ability, if we don't want to support your recommendations, that we don't have to support your recommendations. We can actually plug in something else that we want to see happen across the city, correct?
Through the chairman and the councilman, there are times that I can recall very recently where we took something out of a proposed list because we didn't want to have a disagreement at the city council table.
Sure.
So normally we try to work
Work
with
it
the
out.
council members to
Absolutely.
try to make sure we're in agreement. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure that was the 4 that we see. And just for those who are watching, please don't take this as that there's a issue between the departments and council, but there's collaboration that happens among both sides to determine what we hear, what we support.
Yep.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councilman. And that's a good point that you brought up, because a lot of times our constituents don't know the difference that there is 2 branches of government. And as the legislative branch, we do things a little bit different. Executive branch have some different things that they want to do, but then it has to come to a common ground once it get to council for us to make, recommendations as well as amendments and get things moving. Similar to that, it made me think of the ARPA funding that we did for some different street repairs. Can you talk about where we are at on getting those streets repaired or resurfaced? Because I know a lot of council members went back and forth to make sure those streets were things that they can do. Do you got any updates on that and where we at on that process?
Yes, thank you, Councilman, for bringing that up, because I did forget about that. So we've been really active on the ARPA expenditures for the Back to Basics program. So if you recall, that was a certain number of streets in every ward. It was also a playground in every ward. And then it was the basketball courts, all the basketball courts that are at rec centers. So where we're at currently is that there's only one ward that's completely done for the streets, and we're just working on the punch list, and that's Councilman Kelly's ward. We have 9 other wards that are underway currently, and will be finished up before Thanksgiving. But that means that, as long as weather, doesn't turn starting today. But that means we have 7 wards that we haven't even started that'll happen next year for the roadway portion of the ARPA Back to Basics. And that includes yours, Councilman Starr. And then as far as the playgrounds go, both the playgrounds and the basketball courts would happen next year. Those needed to get bid out separately, so we did bid those out. We do have contractors. We're going through contract formation. And then we've reached out to each of the council members about their playgrounds to see if they wanted to meet with, if there was a Friends of group or somebody that they wanted us to meet with about the design or with the council person. And so we're continuing those discussions about the design and exact location, and we expect to go into construction in the springtime.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to send out an email with all council members, including to make sure they get with you, as well as your department for those playgrounds, just so they can understand what is going on. I know we turned in our list for the streets, as well as just a general update, because once we get into next year, things start moving fastly. So I would definitely get that on our radar, so we can all follow up on that. So that'd be really, really good for us. Anything else, council members? I know you took care of Councilman Kelly. I heard you took care of that ward. That's pretty good.
I had to make good.
That's my guy. But other than that, I really want to go through our different 2 pieces of legislation ordinance we do have. We can probably start that in probably the next 5 minutes, give council members a couple break, and then we'll run through the rest of our committee. We have also different departments coming up to talk about the actual budget presentation. We got motor vehicle maintenance committee, as well as property management. So give us a 5-minute break, and then we roll into that. Thank you.
Thank you.